Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to having Mark Colgan on the show. Mark, it's great to have you on the show. You're the co-founder of Speak On Podcasts, which is a group that has been funneling some great guests my way for many, many years. And so I appreciate all the people that you bring onto Think Business. Think Community, we talk a lot about, you know, I'm a business coach, and we talk a lot about getting unstuck. And our goal for this podcast, one of the goals, is to give you guidance to get you unstuck. I love having guests on the show that can also provide you some guidance to get unstuck. We're going to be talking a lot about podcasting today, the importance of it, and why everybody really should have their own podcast, and the power of being a guest on a podcast as well. Mark, I really appreciate you being on the show. You guys have been sending me people, again, thank you, for years. And I appreciate it. You're calling in from Portugal. Let's talk about what time is it there? Just out of curiosity.
5 p.m. So not too late at all, John.
About 5 hours ahead. Let's talk a little bit about just the power of a podcast. We'll talk just in general terms.
Sure. When it comes to podcasting, I always think that there's 3 different ways you can leverage podcasting as a channel. So you've got start your own podcast, you can speak on other people's podcasts, or you can advertise on podcasts. The reason why the channel, I think, is so effective is that ultimately the way that buyers are making decisions and where they're going for their research has changed. They're looking at YouTube to work out answers to their questions, or they're seeking to find out what their peers are doing to solve the same challenges. And if you are speaking on podcasts by either guesting on other people's shows or having your own, you increase the chances of showing up at that top of the funnel when people are actually looking to solve the problem. And then again, the other thing that's really valuable about the medium of podcasting is that it effectively lives there forever. It's evergreen content. Your offer or your message will still be heard even when you stop the paid ad spend. Whereas, stop spending money on paid ads, those ads don't show anymore. So that's kind of like at a high level where I believe the power is in podcasting.
Yeah, let's talk about, thank you for that. Let's talk about, kind of go over, maybe make this a little bit of a master's class, right? So there's 3 different areas. There is starting your own, being on other people's, and then advertising. Let's talk about starting your own. One of the things, I'm a business coach, and I do a small amount of podcast coaching with my brother because he does a lot of podcasting. I do a lot of podcasting, and people are always surprised how easy it is once they dial in to really kind of get and start your own podcast. But I think the biggest objection is 2 biggest objections are, 1, aren't there already enough podcasts? And 2, who wants to hear me talk about X? So talk about that.
Sure. So I think that the first one is that aren't there enough podcasts? Yes, there's millions of podcasts out there, but if you're selling to a specific audience or a niche audience as well, you can bet that there's not thousands speaking to that same audience. And you only have to be better or more frequent and consistent with your podcast to get in front of that audience as well. If you show up and provide value and it's better than the alternatives out there, then people may make the switch, or they'll probably listen to 2 or 3 different podcasts around the same subject. So there's always room for more than one. I think I saw a stat, I'm going to butcher it, but if somebody listens to a podcast around marketing, they typically listen to 3 to 5 other podcasts around marketing as well. So it's not just the solo or just the single source of a marketing podcast. There's often other podcasts they listen to as well.
Yeah, let's talk about providing value. One of the things for this show, for this podcast, I do guest interviews. And to me, it's a great way. I enjoy learning from other people. I enjoy asking questions. And I think there's a lot of value in for people to see me, how I interact, because I don't prepare any questions, how I am as a business coach with my listening skills and asking questions and things of that nature. And so I'm not over promoting myself as a business coach, even though I've said the word business coach 5 times the last second, but I'm really not. But it's more through the art of listening and asking questions that I get. I do it because I love it, but I also generate clients from it. And so talk a little bit about, the different types of value you can bring. You can speak tips, you can interview people, you can do group interviews. So just talk a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah, of course. And there's many ways that you can produce the show in that sense, or the format you want to take on it. But by positioning yourself as a host that brings on other speakers, even if you're not as knowledgeable as the people that you're bringing on, but you're asking questions that the speaker, that the guest can answer, you almost have this perceived authority. I started my career out in recruitment. I had to interview part qualified and qualified accountants as like a 19-year-old, still just fresh out of university. And I wasn't an accountant as well. But simply by asking the right questions, it positioned myself as a peer, and which helped get the best answers out of the candidates that I was interviewing. And I'm pretty confident that it's the same when it comes to podcasting. It's all about positioning yourself as that authority. And if you can pull in some great names who are more famous than you, let's say, or more industry famous than you, then you can almost piggyback off their network as well.
Right. Exactly. All right, good. I love it. All right, now let's talk about being a guest on other people's podcasts. One of the things I did, because I've been on, I don't know, close to 80 podcasts, is I took all of those podcasts. I actually play them within my Think Business podcast when you go to listen to them. But I also started another podcast called John Dwoskin Gets Interviewed. In case people want to get to know me, it's just like they can listen to those. So talk about the power of just being on other people's podcasts.
Yeah, I'll pick on just, I think, the two most powerful moments of being on someone else's podcast. The first one is that you are able to reach a new audience that you haven't reached yourself yet. You know, maybe there might be some crossover. You might have existing customers or existing prospects in your pipeline that are listening to that show. But in most cases, this is a completely new audience that you can reach. And then you're being invited on that show with a perceived value that you are credible, you're a thought leader, and that you've got something interesting to say, because that's the decision that the host has made to have you on the show. So reaching a new audience is one of the most powerful benefits. The second one is the content, as you're alluding to. You're repurposing that into your own content, onto your own podcast. To be honest, John, I've not heard somebody do that before, actually, put all of their interviews on their own on a new podcast. So I like that one. I'm going to make a note of it. But
well, the reason I did it, I'll tell you why, is because I don't really talk about myself a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interviewing people. I mean, here and there things come through just as I'm talking naturally, but people who want to get to know me, I'm being interviewed. And so I expand on a lot of things. So so check it out. It's on my website. You can see.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it adds a lot more depth into who you are and how you operate and how you work as well. And people enjoy stories. We've been learning from others through storytelling for thousands of years. So I think it's a really smart strategy. Going back to the point about content. So speaking on podcasts is also a content marketing exercise.
Right.
So every podcast interview that you record, let's say the average podcast interview length has reduced of late in the last couple of years, but let's say it's a 35-minute interview. That 35 minutes is roughly transcripted into around 3,500 to 4,000 words, which then you can recreate into several different small blog posts, a long form blog post. You can create social media snippets, infographics, quotes, pull quotes, reuse the video. And then you think about the distribution of that content as well. So you can distribute it on social media, through paid advertising, in your marketing, in your newsletters. I love seeing when I sign up to our customers' newsletters, and then I'm getting their newsletter saying, here's a recent interview I was on where I spoke about X, Y, and Z. So when that lands in my inbox, I get like a little kick of like pride that was us that created that. And then that's just one interview. So one interview can be turned into 15 to 20 different pieces of content, probably more if it was a longer interview. If you speak on several interviews over a period of a few months, that's a lot of content that you've got at your fingertips.
Yeah. No, it's a ton. And I don't think people think about repurposing in so many different ways. You can also, something I've done in the past is, I do this, but you can actually extract it. You can, at the end, just ask kind of a series of questions that you can then extract and kind of make its own videos like you're talking about. So you can really be creative. I use, just as we're talking about podcasts, I use something called StreamYard, which for me is great because it's a whole studio that makes it look pretty professional, and I can do it myself, and it's great. It's great. Let's talk about, we talked a little bit about advertising as well. that they kind of, once you're done advertising, they have they're evergreen and they're long term. What else about advertising? How do you pick the right podcast to advertise on?
Yeah. So whether you're starting your own podcast, speaking on others, or advertising, you still want to make sure that you're focusing on the most relevant audience for you. So I always like to say that if you are being paid to give a keynote speech at a conference, who do you want sitting in those seats in front of you? So always keep that in mind when you're picking the right show. If I'm honest, advertising works best if you've got a very large total addressable market. And you have a smaller lifetime value. So it's really geared towards those B2C or those lower priced B2B products where you need to reach millions of people. Whereas when you speak on other people's podcasts, let's call it the HR leadership chat, and you want to speak to HR leaders, it doesn't have to be a huge audience for that to be a positive ROI interaction for you.
It's great. Let's talk about the fear of getting in front of the mic. So somebody says, hey, I have a great idea for a podcast. I got the content, I got the value, I got the this, but I don't even know, right? I got the technology down because, I've been taught how to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, fear of just being in the mic, or, and I just want to say this, you can do audio only. I do a live show and then I turn it into a podcast. You can do audio only. You can edit. You cannot edit. Talk to the person who is afraid to just begin.
Yeah, just remember that you're having a conversation with another human being, and if you feel maybe like an imposter that you haven't earned the right to be on the microphone, then bring on guests. I'm sure that's not true, but bring on guests who can deliver the value. Ask for people who have been in the industry for longer than you, and leverage their expertise as well. Yeah. We partner with a professional voice and presentation coach for all of our customers, and she has a thing that she talks about, the pint and a half rule. Coming from the UK, she's also from the UK as well. So she says, just imagine that you've had a pint and a half of beer. You're not drunk, you're not tipsy, but you're relaxed, you're comfortable, you're sitting in a pub. Again, very British of us talking about pubs, but you're sitting in a pub, and on the other side of the table is a friend, and you're just giving them an update of what's going on in your life. Yeah. And try and get into that mindset when you're having a conversation. Just to be clear, she doesn't advocate that we have a pint and a half before every interview. And John, I can assure you, I haven't had any drink today.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I love it. All right, that's great. All right, quick speed round. Mark, you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
A book that's had the biggest impact on you.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Great one. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
It's a bit of a long answer for this one, John, but the idea is to face rejection in everyday life as much as you can. I think it was originally in Tim Ferriss's book where he encourages you to ask for a 10% discount wherever you go. Since last Thursday, I've done it 4 times, haven't received the discount. Felt awkward. It was awkward. I'm in Portugal. My Portuguese isn't great, so it causes a lot of confusion, but it builds up resilience, and it builds up that resilience and being able to face rejection, feel awkward for half a second, and move on. My life hasn't got worse because of it.
I love it. I love it. And finish this sentence. One thing everybody needs to do to get over the voice in their head that says they don't need a podcast, but they know they should have one is?
Just start. Start, record yourself. If you don't like it, you don't have to publish it. Give it a go.
Good. I love it. Tell people where they can connect with you, Mark, and who your ideal clients are.
Sure. So ideal customers are B2B SaaS companies or established agencies, ideally that have an audience that are listening to podcasts. And if you want to reach out to me, you can book a call on speakonpodcast.com/contact. That should come through to me.
I love it. Think community. I appreciate everybody chiming in. And Mark, I appreciate you sharing about the power of podcasts. We started off talking about, can you get one thing from today's to get you unstuck? And there's a lot that Mark shared. But one thing that I'll extract that resonated with me is the power of doing one thing and repurposing it for so many other things. And so through podcasting, there is so much content that you can create that it's just huge. And so the more content that you create, we all got to be content providers today. I think it's really, really important to make sure that we're always pushing out the value in the content. So I think community, think about it. And if Mark can help you, please reach out to him. Speakonpodcast.com. Mark, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say one thing actually. If you're struggling to create content, just record an interview with yourself. Record it 30 minutes. You've got the essence of your content there. No one has to hear your voice. You can then just repurpose that content as well.
Yeah, I love it. Mark, thanks again for sending people to this podcast. I appreciate it. It's been great. Think community. If you don't have a podcast, you should start one. If you don't listen to podcasts, you should listen to one. And to me, they're a game changer because it's real-time content to help you through any challenge you want to get through. Mark, I appreciate your company. I appreciate you being on the show. Thanks so much.
Thanks, John. Have a great day. See ya.
You too.